I am so excited to be here today with Rhea Wong, a friend of mine for many years. She is both a leader in nonprofit and author, and actually, the triple whammy is she's a comedian. So, she recently wrote the book, Get That Money, Honey, and it's all about how to help nonprofits raise money. She's, as a prior CEO of her own nonprofit, she's raised millions of dollars institutionally with events, but her main Get That Money, Honey is about individual donors. How can we do that with private philanthropy? And she's been so successful in doing that herself and with nonprofits that she's become a leader in the nonprofit community here in New York. She's also frequently asked to comment in the media. She's been recognized with the Smart CEO Brava Award in 2015 and the New York Nonprofit Media's 40 Under 40 in 2017. And what makes her so fun, in addition to all that, is that she is a stand-up comedian, hilarious. I had a private showing, well, not private, but I have friends, and she's super, super funny. So check her out in all the ways. But welcome, Rhea. I'm so excited you're here.
Analiza, thank you so much for having me.
So, Rhea, I want to know
Yes, ma'am.
if this was always the dream. Like, did you have in your head that you would be an author, that you would be a comedian, that you would be a CEO, and then after that, have your own consulting company? What was that arc, especially coming back from you and I are both Asian American, but give me the highlight of how young Rhea Wong has now found herself in these footsteps that you carry.
I don't think any Asian American kid is like, I'm going to be a consultant. Right. Like to this day, my parents don't actually know what I do. So I tell the story a lot. I was a 26-year-old ED in New York. My first day on the job, I did two Google searches. Google search one was, what does an ED do? Google search two was, how do you fundraise? I mean, so clueless, right? So 12 and a half years later, I and my team had built up the organization to serving over 500 kids a year in New York, in the Bronx, Manhattan, and Brooklyn at 3 different sites. And I was raising $3 million a year in private philanthropy. I mean, truthfully speaking, I didn't know that I was destined to run my own company. I had actually, after leaving my organization at the end of 2017, joined a tech firm for about 2.5 months and then realized like that was not for me, not my jam. So I left, and I don't know, I was a little bit adrift because, like you, I'm sure I had been a very good Asian, right? Like I did all the things. I like got all the A's, went to the right schools, got a job after college. And it was really the first time in my life that I didn't have a next step of like, oh, this is what you do as a grown up. And in fact, leaving that job was a big crisis moment for me because I had so identified myself with what I do and going to work. Like that was my identity. And so when I didn't have that, it really caused a bit of a mini crisis. And then, breakdown, breakthrough. It's like, wait, but that means I could do anything. And so I kind of became an accidental consultant because I had lots of ED friends and they found out I had some free time. So like one project led to the next project, led to the next project. And lo and behold, I was like, well, I guess that's what I'm doing now. And then mid-pandemic is really when I transitioned to focus more on fundraising. Because in the beginning, I was taking on lots of different projects like talent management projects, strategy projects. But I decided, the riches are in the niches. And so what I really wanted to do was to focus in on the number one problem all nonprofits have, which is fundraising. And I think, and you and I can talk about this too, is in this sector, we have people who are accidental fundraisers. I mean, we hire people who are tasked with some of the most important work in the world and provide them no training in the job that they're supposed to do, which is just craziness. So what I do now is I provide that training, especially around major gift fundraising. And so did I know that this is where I would end up? No, not at all. Did I know that I had a book in me? I did think I had a book in me. I thought it was the great American novel. Turns out it was a fundraising book. And, as far as the stand-up comedy goes, it's always been a lifelong dream. But I will tell you, there's nothing more soul-crushing than bombing on stage throughout downtown Brooklyn and downtown Manhattan. I've bombed everywhere. And really, I joke, but it's kind of not a joke. My goal is to be Asian Oprah.
You told me Asian Oprah, Rhea, and I saw that in you when I first met you. I still see it. You are it. And you don't even have to say Asian Oprah. You're just you. So hooray for that trajectory, your humility. And I want to talk about this trajectory because there's one thing that captured when I thought about the person who embodied this, I thought about you. and this idea of putting yourself out there. Because for all the
Mm.
scary things that I've done, I mean, I've bungee jumped and I've put myself in front of, thousands of people talking about a speech, right? Like for all those things, I actually think it would be even scarier to stand up in front of people and share these jokes and people not laugh. Like it would bomb. Like it just, that sounds like a bad dream. Have you always been the kind of person who just, yeah, since I was, 5 years old, Rhea would tell these jokes, run around, people would laugh or not laugh, and you were just fine with it? Or did you have to develop this?
So I was doing an open mic here in San Francisco where I live, and my whole family's here. So I was doing this open mic in this little dive bar, and literally my brothers came, my parents came, my best friends were there, their parents were there, and my born again Christian aunt was there. And my set, you've heard it, it's like not super clean. And I'm sitting there like, oh my God, I am telling like sex jokes in front of my parents. This is terrible. Like, so speaking of the nightmare was complete. I was like, I just need to be naked and have a calculus test. And like, that's it. The Trinity is here. But I will say there is nothing better than stand-up comedy to get you ready to do anything. Because like if you can bomb a set in front of your parents and not die, you're like, I'm bulletproof. I can do anything. So to answer your question about like where does this come from? To be honest, I don't really know. I've always been pretty self-assured. I think testament to the way that my parents raised me, but I think I like busted out of the womb ready. I was like, I am here, people. Which is not to say that I don't get self-conscious or I don't care about what people think about me or I don't get insecure. Of course, I'm a human being. So I think if anything, my superhero power is I have a blessedly short memory. Like I don't dwell on things. I'm a bit of a goldfish, for better or for worse. And so I think the thing that holds people back a lot is both anticipating like all of the ways it's going to go wrong. So I definitely have that. I have low level anxiety like all New Yorkers. I think the thing that has really helped me is I can shake it off pretty quickly and turn the page. And it's that one skill maybe that has been really the most helpful in my entrepreneurial journey.
Okay, Rhea, you can teach many things, but the idea of shaking it off, that you can fall on your face and goldfish moment, boom, let's keep going. It reminds me of
Mm-hmm.
Dory. I mean, tell me, if you were to teach me that skill, like I really want to learn that. Maybe one day I can be ballsy enough to get on stage and tell a sex joke in front of my parents. For someone who's just really does want to build the skill, how would you say, here's how I do it?
All right, say something happens that you think is embarrassing or, whatever. The thing that I think really gets a lot of people is that you get stuck in your head narrative about it. So like you make it mean something. You're like, oh, I'll give you an example. So I sent an email by accident to my hold list, which is like, I actually wrote an email about having like accidentally sent this email. The minute it sent and I realized that I'd sent the wrong thing, that was like this, I hit the wrong button, whatever. Like the narrative just went in my head. Oh my God, people are going to unsubscribe. They're going to think I'm bad at email. They think I'm a moron, blah, blah, blah. Like it spiraled out of control. And the trick of it for me was just to take a breath. And I do meditate. I meditate every morning. So I think that meditation provides just a little bit of space between the narrative that your little like brain is spinning out and the prefrontal cortex. And it's like, okay, take a breath. And I think just the ability to take a breath and be like, okay, stop. Like, how realistic is this narrative that you're telling yourself? Like, is it true that people might be a little annoyed that they got a double email from you? Sure. Is it true that some people might unsubscribe? Sure. Is it true that everyone's going to think you're a moron and like hate you and never want to talk to you again? Probably not. And if they do, they probably weren't your friends in the first place, right? So I think part of it is just letting your prefrontal cortex calm your amygdala down a little bit. Like, okay, and then I got this tip from Dr. Eugene Choi, which is so helpful. So our brains are either operating in survival mode or executive mode. There's one of two, and it's all the time. Most of us spend 70% of our time in survival mode, right? So that's why we get like anxious, aggressive, judgy, all of the bad things, because we're interpreting things as threats. And his hack which is so great, is you literally think to yourself, okay, I feel anxious or I feel stressed or I feel frustrated or like whatever label that feeling is for you. And the very act of having to think about what that feeling is moves the energy to your prefrontal cortex and calms everything down. And then the other thing that I would say is, and shout out to Jen Chow Fontaine. I worked with her, but she's a somatic coach. So it's like, feel the feelings in your body, right? So when I get anxious, I can feel like my heart start racing. I can like start breathing really shallowly. I can sort of like feel myself getting a little clammy. And just the consciousness of the physical feeling is like, okay, like take a breath, slow it down. So those are a couple of things, which is not to say I still don't get anxious. Like, the default, especially I think being Asian, there's so much pressure to appear a certain way or be perfectionistic that it's really hard to override the code on that, but I'm trying.
I love it. You actually codified it really well, Rhea. So first is when we make mistakes, as all humans do, take a pause, take a breath.
Mm-hmm.
Second is name the feeling,
Mm-hmm.
anxiety, fear, whatever it is. And third is check your assumptions. Is it really true that people will think I'm the most horrible person on planet Earth and blah, 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 blah? Maybe not. So yeah. I love that because it all slows down and stops the pattern. That's so normal.
Exactly.
And pattern of pain, right? We just like start spiraling, and all of a sudden it's like 6 months later. So powerful. So,
well, and the other thing too is when you're naming the feeling, it's important to say I feel versus I am. So instead of saying I am stressed, be like I feel stressed, because feelings are temporary, feelings pass, but I am is an identity statement. So I think just being conscious too of like the words that we use for ourselves, because it's so easy for us to beat up on ourselves. It's so easy to go down the path like, oh God, you're a moron. Like, why did you do that? Why did you say that? It's like, okay, how about I just start with being nicer to myself, which is like really the hardest thing, right? Because I can be super nice to everybody else, but when it comes to myself, that's when I really get very abusive.
That's actually really powerful. You had said earlier, hurt people hurt people. And I wonder where that comes from. And it's like the research shows that the more I hurt me, I actually hurt you. So pain, projecting pain. So can we actually love ourselves? I know that sounds like, oh, it's so woo, truly. Like, how can I show self-compassion and comfort ourselves in the way that we comfort others? I mean, you're such a good friend to others. Like, how can we do that to us? And so I love that.
Yeah. It's often, someone said this to me, I know it's kind of cliche, but someone once said, like, would you let anybody talk to your best friend the way that you talk to yourself? And I was like, no way. I'd fight someone if they talked to my best friend that way. And I was like, okay, but why do I let myself talk to myself like that? And I was like, oh, yeah. And actually, one last fun thing about that. So I have a dear friend who is French, and he, his name is Alex, and he like made some mistake, like, went to the wrong toll booth or something, and he was being harangued in French, and he responds, oh my God, what is your name? I've never met someone like you who's never made a mistake before. That's amazing. Can I get your autograph? And I always think about that. It's just like a funny thing of like, oh my God, I've never met anybody who's never made a mistake. That's incredible.
I love the humor. Can't we be lighter, right? Can't we be lighter?
Yeah.
In French.
And French. Oh my God, I've never met anybody who's never made a mistake.
So I want to extend this further, Rhea, because the idea of making mistakes and putting yourself out there and having a brand. When I think about you, I'm like, she really goes out there with vulnerable stories, willing to say things that are risky, right? Parents listening, people are listening, but you do it. It feels to me like 110%. And with it, you're both celebrating the fact that you are a leader with this expertise in fundraising and have been in ED, and also you're providing humility. So I'm curious because often, and we're both Asian American, oh, you think you're something, like humility, right? Like humility is so prized. And yes, we want to have conviction, but in a humble, quiet way, in a quiet, like go behind. And so I'm curious for you, did you find that true of you, or were your parents like, yeah, go out there, say your thing, be loud, like be proud? Or did you have these sort of Asian American stereotypes that were put on you? And talk about that journey, because how did you develop into this, Asian Oprah, but really Rhea Wong version of you now?
Part of it is that my parents are second generation. So I don't know what generation you are. So I'm very Americanized. My parents also grew up in the Bay Area during the 60s and 70s. So I think, they were Americanized enough to always, really support my voice, support me going out there. Like I remember in sixth grade, I decided to run for the sixth grade president, and my mom was there helping me with my campaign posters, right? So like I think they've always really been supportive. Now, that being said, it hasn't always been comfortable for them. There are definitely times when my mom is still like, you can't say that. Like, really? Because I just did. Yeah. So I think it's definitely a testament to my parents. Part of it is probably just, the personality that I had and was born with. And part of it is I'm really bad at faking. Like I can't fake it. And so the way that I approach the stuff that I do, the brand, is not from a place of like, I'm so great, look at me, but rather like, hey, I've figured out some stuff. And if it's helpful to you, cool. And if it's not, that's cool too. Because I think I'm a recovering people pleaser. And I think maybe that's like my Achilles heel, which is like, I want everyone to like me, but the truth is like, not everyone's going to like me. Not everyone's going to like everybody. And just being okay with like, there are some people who are going to think I'm obnoxious and are not going to want to engage with me. That's fine. There are lots of people in the world, but there are other people who are going to be really into my message, into being in my community, into, my weekly emails. And those are my people. So I don't want to over index on the haters.
It sounds like with both a super supportive parents and having your sense of, I have something that I'm hopeful that will be helpful to people, that those combined, plus, you know what, if you're not interested, that's okay. You're not my people anyway. All of those combined help you to just get out there and not be so self-conscious. Am I getting that right?
Self-consciousness has never really been one of my, I have many flaws with being self-conscious. Is probably to my detriment. It's like I won't do that like last check before leaving the house. Like I could have spinach hanging out of my teeth. I don't really know. But yeah, I think it's some combination of that. And also just, I mean, I feel very lucky. I have such a lovely community, like people like you who are really supportive and really loving and really validating. And, to me, my number one thing is I want to be helpful to people. So it's more hurtful to me for someone to say that I was not helpful versus like they didn't like my personality. I'm like, whatever. I don't care if you don't like my personality, but I really have prided myself on like being helpful to people, adding value to people.
That's beautiful because it also works with our orientation that if we're of service and that's the point, then the rest doesn't matter. Like people can not like us and it's okay. Can we actually go to Rhea, this people pleaser piece? Because it is,
Yeah.
as a recovering one, I noted that you said recovering. How did you feel like, and I'm not to say that you're cured, but how have you made steps? What would you say have been key mindset changes or actions that you've taken or work you've done that help you to be a better, or just like give the middle finger to all the things, right?
I don't know that I'm fully there yet, but I think meditation certainly helps. Therapy certainly helps. I mean, I think that people pleasing comes from a place of believing that love is scarce or love is conditional. And then I guess I just don't really believe that anymore. I think part of it too is seeing mentors in my own life who have when I think about the people I most admire, they have very strong personalities, right? They're not kind of in the middle, because I think people pleasing is like you're kind of trying to be milquetoast and you're trying to please everybody, and you don't want to upset anybody, but like strong people, strong flavors, strong points of view are the people I really admire. And so I've looked at those people and just really thought about like, do I want to be milquetoast or do I want to be Oprah, right? Do I want to be for some people and not for some people, or do I want to be like kind of beige? I don't want to be beige. In fact, I don't even know how to be beige. And then I think the other piece too, honestly, is just getting older and realizing that like it doesn't really matter what people think about you. Like I think kind of growing into my own skin. I don't know if you find that to be true too for yourself.
I mean, you're not beige, yeah. I'm getting to see you on video with like the pops of color. You always have the coolest glasses and bright red lipstick. So you're definitely not beige. We'll start there. And the second part is it's so interesting to be older. And I think it's actually something for me personally, I'm celebrating that because the older I get, the more I release all the other stuff. Like, it doesn't matter if you don't like me. I'm old anyway, and I don't have a lot of time to be catering to all the people. Like, I just need a couple of
Yeah.
people in my corner and I have them and it's okay. So
Yeah,
there's something to be
for sure.
older and wiser, I think, on the other side of it.
I just think about myself in my 20s and even my 30s, really. I was so, I mean, yeah, I was like preoccupied with what people thought about me, particularly around being a young ED. I felt like I really had to prove myself. Like I was always like, oh, they're going to think I'm incompetent. They're going to think I'm a flaky. I had all these narratives. And then once I started getting successes under my belt and started to really build a reputation in the field, there was less pressure on myself that I put on myself. No one was putting it on me. It was on all me pressuring myself about worrying about what other people said or thought about me. And realizing too that ultimately I have no control over what people think about me. Like, love me or hate me, like that's not something that I have any direct control. That's on you. And so I got to be me.
So tell me, Rhea, when you think about just overall life, young Rhea, we believe these things, and then now looking back at our wise ages, there were myths. They were absolutely not true. Any one or two really come to mind as that was not true, but gosh darn, I really wish that I hadn't believed it.
So many. The biggest one is, and I think this might be an Asian thing. I'd be curious about your thoughts on it. But the biggest one is that my value is derived from what I do, right? Like how much I can work, how much I can grind, how much output I put out there. And that is directly proportional to my value as a human, which led to overwork and workaholism and all the rest of it, right? And as you know, I have a network called Asian Boss Ladies, and this seems like a similar theme of like, I have no value unless I can work, unless I produce. And coming around to the fact that I have value no matter what I do has been a revelation, I would say. And then I think the other piece is, I mean, this has been sort of a lifelong thing, but it's better to ask forgiveness than permission, right? Because I think especially you and I now being entrepreneurs, we have this idea of like, am I allowed to do that? Who do I ask? Is that allowed? Because our whole lives have been so regimented, right? It's like you go to school, then you get a job, then you get married, then you have kids, and they did it. And then all of a sudden, when you're in this world of entrepreneurship, it's like, oh, there are no rules. Like you get to do whatever you want. And I think the freedom is both exhilarating, but can also be really debilitating too. Because they're like, I don't know. Like, I don't know how to make my own rules up. I don't know. Do you find that to be true for yourself?
Oh, for sure. I mean, the rules of the road, it was nice because there's a syllabus. You could do the homework, you could do the tests, follow the activities, apply for the colleges, do the work. Even in the work world, there's a job description and there's processes to follow, and you're still good. You're checking boxes. And now that we're on this other side of entrepreneurship, where really you can do anything and there is no one managing you or your time, it's so freeing. And at the same time, I still have these, well, who should I ask to make sure I'm okay, that I'm doing the right thing? And when really there's no one, just us. So I love it. I love it. I know for you. Go ahead.
No, I love it. Well, I was going to say, like, it's like, I cannot be put back in the cage. Like I am a free bird now. But the other, just as we were talking, it occurred to me is like, there is no cosmic report card, right? And I think we're so conditioned to think like, how do I get an A? Like, how do I win at life? It's like, there's no report card. Like God is not a principal. This is not a competition. Welcome to life. It's,
oh my gosh.
It's like Earth School, right? You're like, oh, there's no scoreboard.
Yes, and actually, there's nowhere to go, right? You and I were talking earlier about we're here, like we've arrived.
Yeah,
life is now. Like this is it. And
it
is a song, and you could break out into this is it, but it really is. Like it is it now. And if we don't enjoy it, like what are we striving to? Like death? It just feels. Let's not, right? Let's be here and live life and make the mistakes and laugh and pick each other up and keep going, because this is it. So I love it. It's not the thing that I learned as a kid, but I'm glad we're talking about it.
Well, I wonder too, and again, I attribute everything to Asianness, but maybe it's also an American thing. It's like we're always looking for the next thing, but not enjoying it now, right? Like when you're in school, you're looking forward to the next grade, and then you're looking forward to college, and then you're looking forward to your next job, and then eventually you're looking forward to retirement. It's like, but also, can you enjoy what's happening right now?
Mm-hmm.
Because by the
Mm-hmm.
time you're retired, you might be too old to really enjoy it. Like carpe diem, people.
Carpe diem, carpe diem. With that, let's do lightning round. Are you ready?
Yeah,
Okay.
give it to me.
Chocolate or vanilla?
Chocolate. You knew that.
Cooking or takeout?
My husband cooking.
Climb a mountain or jump from a plane?
Ooh, jump from a plane. I don't like climbing.
Have you ever worn socks with sandals?
Not on purpose, but I might have done. Like it
How,
wasn't a conscious fashion choice.
how would you rate your karaoke skills? Scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Mariah Carey.
Does emotion count? Because I'm high on the emotion level, low on the skill level. High
Nice.
passion, low skill.
What's a recent book you read?
Oh my gosh, so good. I'm reading The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate. And I had read, which I thought was so good, What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu about complex PTSD, particularly for all my Asian ladies out there. It's a great read.
What's a really good professional development you've done?
Jennifer McCrae's class at Harvard, I think really was a game changer, a life changer for me.
What was the class?
It was the course in exponential fundraising, and it really opened my eyes to a lot of the stuff I teach today. Honestly, I credit her with helping me to understand that fundraising is actually not about the money, it's about the relationships.
Nice. What's your definition of a boss mama?
Boss mama is someone who lives unapologetically and does what she wants to do.
What advice would you give your younger self?
I would say don't pay attention to the haters.
Can you share your socials, all those LinkedIn, all the different ways we can contact you?
LinkedIn is my most active platform. I basically ignore all of the rest. So I'm not, I have accounts, but I don't really check Facebook or Twitter or all the rest of it. So LinkedIn is the jam, and then rheawong.com is where you can find all of the action.
Perfect. And then last question, Rhea. Do you have a final ask, recommendation, parting thoughts to share?
Let's make 2023 the year of accomplishing without hustle. Like I think hustle culture has really worn all of us down. And so can 2023 be the year of ease and the year of success?
Love it. Rhea, a pleasure. You're a pleasure. I love spending time with you. Thank you so much for all the wisdom.
Analiza, this is so fun. Anytime. This has been great. Thank you for having me.